أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب يسير ولا تعسير رب تمم بالخير. Welcome everyone to Always Receiving Noor weekly Quran study. We are continuing to study Surah 19, Surah Maryam, Surah Mary, and this is our 15th session on this chapter, and we had an extended discourse last time from Sister Yamina that opened us up into to relating to angels in our everyday life. Is there anybody who would like to share anything that stayed with you from last session? Okay, so then we'll continue to journey in the surah. We are around verse 64 in chapter 19, and Sister Yamina will again be kindly leading us tonight. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. So as Isra just reminded us, we had stopped at ayah 64, where we were told we do not come down except by your Rabb's command, your sustainer''s command. He owns whatever is in front of us, whatever is behind us, and whatever is in between, and your Rabb never forgets. So it means whoever is speaking there, and we talked about all the possibilities, are saying that we do not come down except by God's command, your Rabb's command, because He owns everything. Whatever you see, you don't see, and everything. Whatever you can think of, you know or you don't know. And He never forgets. And we will see later in ayah 70, we're also told that He knows who to put in Jannah, in paradise. So He knows everything. He knows our needs. He knows what we need when we are praying, when we are calling, and He knows our need in this world and in the next. He knows who will end up where. So we better be busy with what makes us end up in paradise or hell, rather than busy with will God know or not. And the next ayah we're told because He is the sustainer, He is the Rabb of everything, seen and unseen, known and unknown. He is the sustainer of the heavens and the earth and all that is between them. Worship then Him alone and remain steadfast in His worship. Do you know anything whose name is worthy to be mentioned side by side with His? So after ayah 64, in ayah 65, we're told, رب السماوات والأرض وما بينهما فاعبده واصطبر لعبادته هل تعلم له سميا. So we're told why, He knows everything, because He is the sustainer of the heavens and the earth. رب السماوات والأرض وما بينهما, and everything that is in between them. Therefore, worship Him alone. And here the worship, in English you can't tell if it's singular or plural, but in Arabic you can. It's singular. Worship Him alone and remain steadfast in His worship. Meaning that he alone deserves to be worshipped. And we talked about the meaning of worship many times, meaning he's the only one who deserves to be praised and be asked for help. And we ask him alone for help because nothing else can help us in any way. Nothing else shares any of his beautiful qualities. That's why nothing can take his name. هل تعلموا له سمية? Do you know anything who can, he's worthy of being mentioned by his side, of being worthy of taking one of his names? And that's the reality of Tawheed, worshipping God as our only Rabb, meaning no shirk whatever. And it says worship and remain steadfast in his worship. So it's not about worshipping from time to time, worshipping once and then forgetting long time, but this constancy in worship is important. Yet the ignorant and the mindless, before that I had said, that it was the singular, and it attracted my attention. It doesn't say فَعْبُدُوهُ, it says فَعْبُدْهُ, singular, you, one person, worship him, which is again reminding us that this is a personal what's the words for this? That's worse. It's because it's a way of being, a way of, no one else can know God for me. No one else can ask help for me or praise for me. So worship is something that we do individually. We do it collectively as well as a form of worship, but the spirit of the worship, the spirit of being in worship. I could be part of a big congregation, but my mind is not there, or I'm physically with them and in mind and heart and soul not with them. So what makes the worship truly worship is something personal that we have to work on as individuals. And yet the ignorant and the mindless still wonder about the possibility of resurrection, the possibility of life after death. And why is that? Because they never reflect on their creation, our creation here and now. How are we being sustained now? How are we taken from babyhood to childhood to adulthood? If someone never wondered how that happened, he can never really truly ask who is taking care of us, who is creating us in new forms again and again. And if we never wondered about that, it does seem like far-fetched, like we'll die and then we'll be brought to life. Like, it seems far from reason. But what defines reason? Of course, reason is limited by what we experience in life. And if it depends, therefore, on our perception of life here and now. And if I'm aware of how I am being created and sustained in life here and now and how I'm changing, then it will become reasonable. If I'm totally unaware of it, then it seems far-fetched, because reason only works with the data that it's being given. And such person wonders, وَيَقُولُ الْإِنسَانُ أَإِذَا مَا مِتُّ لَسَوْفَ أُخْرَجُ حَيًّا. So with all this, human being still says, what? Once I'm dead, shall I again be brought forth alive? And again, it is an insan, human being, one human being, a person saying this, singular. It's a singular, not a whole people wondering how come. we will be brought back to life after death, which is interesting because this questioning of life after death is mentioned repeatedly in the Quran. But as far as I remember, in the other parts of the Quran, it's usually plural. It's usually people, a certain representing a certain way of being, a certain way of thinking, a certain way of perceiving the world. But in this context, it's about each human being. So, for instance, in Surat al-Mu'minun, which is Surah 23, there it's mentioned a few times. So we told there, and indeed, if you pay heed to a mortal like yourselves, you will surely be the losers. So these are the disbelievers saying, come on, like, are you going to follow? Meaning, a mortal here is the Prophet, alayhi salatu wassalam. Does he promise you that after you died and become dust and bones, you shall be brought forth to a new life? Far-fetched indeed is what you are promised. There is no life beyond our life in this world. We die and we live only once, and we shall never be raised from the dead. This is what they say. And later in the same, so this is from Ayah 34 to Ayah 37. And in the same surah, meaning Surah al-Mu'minun, Surah 23, from Ayah 78 to 80, we're again told, O people, pay heed to God's messages, to God's... for it is He who has endowed you with hearing and sight and minds. Yet how seldom you are grateful. And He it is, God, it is who has caused you to multiply on earth, and unto Him you shall be gathered. And He it is who grants life and deals death, and to Him is due the alternation of night and day. Will you not then use your reason? But they still say, they speak as the people of olden times spoke. They say, what? After we have died and become mere dust and bones, shall we be raised from the dead? قالوا أإذا متنا وكنا ترابا وعظاما أإنا لمبعوثون. And in many different parts of the Quran, we are told how people are like, it can't be true. It seems so far-fetched here. It says, hayhata, like too far-fetched, twice. So here, because the singular is used in this ayah, the human being, ويقول الإنسان, when human being says, إذا ما مت لسوف أخرج حيا, how come once I'm dead, shall I again be brought forth alive? And this means it's not really a question. It's a rhetorical question, means it can't be true. I don't believe this. And this implies that every human being could potentially say this. It means we have this, let's say, well, potential is better than inclination. Therefore, we should not absolve ourselves from this possibility. When we read in this surah, for instance, if I read it only to mean some other people, then I wouldn't truly learn anything, any message from this ayah. This ayah is not saying the disbeliever. Say, وَيَقُولُ الْإِنسَانُ. Insan means human being, any person says this. Remember in Surah Yusuf alayhi salam, when he was saying, وَمَا أُبَرِّئُ نَفْسِي إِنَّ النَّفْسَ لَأَمَّارَةٌ بِالسُّوءِ إِلَّا مَا رَحِمَ رَبِّي إِنَّ رَبِّي غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. I do not absolve myself, he says. So we should not absolve ourselves. For truly, he says, the nafs, the soul, the self does incite to evil. It has this potential in it. So we shouldn't take it for granted that it's not talking about me. No, it could be hidden from me. How do I know? I only know when I consider the possibility. So who is accepted from this, the incitement to evil of the soul's, the self's incitement to evil? Only save those who, on whom my Rabb bestows his rahmah. So I need God's rahmah, I need my Rabb's rahmah to save me from being among those who question the possibility of being resurrected, of life after death. And we don't want to remain only open to the possibility. That's only the beginning. In the Quran, we saw again and again how when it comes to akhirah and resurrection and life after death, the Quran mostly does not use sometimes iman, amanu, to believe, to be sure, but more than that, yuqinun, وَهُمْ بِالْآخِرَةِ هُمْ yuqinun. It's a yaqeen, it's a certainty, something that I need to be totally certain about without doubt. And that's very important, because if I have doubt, it's going to reflect on how I live my life on a daily basis here and now. So it's very, very important. So instead of absolving ourselves, we need to remain vigilant. And how do we do that? By confirming that indeed we will be brought to life again, as we are being brought to life again and again here and now in this life. We are going on a journey, and this journey is, we are changing. Especially if you look at small children, it's easier to see how fast they are changing. It's a new creation every few months. Because even if we don't ask this question openly, like, once I'm dead, how come? I don't think I will be brought again to life. We may not say this openly in words, but we could be living in that state of mind, unaware of ourselves. And how is that? Through the way we live our life, through the way we make our choices in life, as though we could be living, as though we were never going to be brought back to life after death, as if there were no day of judgment. We know we may not be denying it, but not denying is only the beginning. Not denying is not enough. It's only the beginning of the journey. We have to be sure, without any doubt, that that is the reality. And only when I'm sure in my heart, I have no doubt, and I have that certain knowing, it will translate in the way I live in the world, in the way I interact with others, in the way I choose, I make choices. Because it will be my goal, my purpose in life will be molded with that certainty. When we are in a state of ghafla, which is a self-centered state, it's all about, it could be self-centered, could be about me, my family, my people, but it's still, again, I'm the center of all that. And there is a disconnection with akhirah, even if I think I believe in it. That's not how I perceive myself and the world and others. When we are in that state, we only notice what's leaving us, and we never wonder where they're coming from. We we notice that when something we like ends or is taken from us, we notice it and we start wailing and crying. But like when it was given to us, we don't ask questions there. We almost take it like for granted. So yes, we are getting older, but there was a time we were not even in this world. Where did we come from? The believer does not only see what's going. When he sees what's going, he also remembers that, but he was given. Something new is coming in instead. Where are they coming from? Who is bringing them here? When I'm getting older, we panic when we're in state of ghafla, because we're getting closer and closer to something unknown that we call death. And that we never want to think about what is this death. We don't like it, and so we run away from it. We avoid it as though we could avoid it. And so we never ask, but I was not even in this world at what time. Where did I come from? What is it, or who is it that brought me here? Who is it that is taking care of me now, that is sustaining my life now? And that's exactly what we're reminded in the next ayah, when we're told, أَوَلَا يَذْكُرُ الْإِنسَانُ أَنَّ خَلَقْنَاهُ مِنْ قَبْلُ وَلَمْ يَكُ شَيْئًا. Does human being not bear in mind that we have created him aforetime when he was nothing? Like you were nothing and you were brought in this world. And in this world, you are brought from one state to another. How come you are now questioning the reality of the resurrection, as if we're being very reasonable, as if it's not rational? People talk about rational. What is rational anyway? We limit the rational or the irrational. According to what? According to our experience in the world and our perception of, actually, it's according to our perception of the experience of the world. And we talked about the difference between facts and perception, because we could be experiencing the same situation, and different people could perceive that situation in different ways. And it does not make my perception may be consistent with the facts or not. And I cannot know until I question it. And that's why in the Quran we learn how to question what's going on within us and around us. And within us and around us are very, very tightly interconnected. And so why is it important to keep this in mind, that we have been created aforetime when we were nothing? Because it means that we are not self-sufficient. It means that we have a Rabb, we have a sustainer. And therefore, we don't have to worry about what will happen to us in the future, because we tend to worry about the future and forget about who has been taking care of us till now, because we have this illusion that I'm the one who is taking care of myself. But truly, how can I be taking care of myself and my life when I cannot even sustain my own breathing? My life is not in my hand, is not under my control. So that's a reasoning and a perception of the reality in a state of ghafla. And it's very, that perception has nothing to do with the reality. And this is good news, because we realize that we are being taken care of. So we don't have to worry about what will happen to us in the future, because our being brought here, our being taken care of and sustained since the beginning of our life till now, are all evidences. They are ayat that make us trust that our future is in good hands. And again, we are the beneficiary of this belief, believing in our Rabb. And we reap the benefits of the this belief, here and now, as well as in Akhirah. It's not only in Akhirah. Definitely it is in Akhirah. But Akhirah starts now. Akhirah starts here and now. Because how we will end up and where we will end up matters to us now, and it affects the quality of our life and how we feel right now. And so paradise and hell are not something to be. It's like someone saying, someone is a student and is going to take an exam, and at the end of that exam, either you get certified and you have a profession, or you don't get the certificate and you can't practice that profession. So you can't say that I'll think about it at the end. No, you have to prepare for it before. So paradise and hell, they matter to us right now, unless we live in ghafla, of course.
Yamina,
yes.
Can we also see that when we are in that forgetful state, in unaware state, we can choose between the real future and the fake future? I mean, we worry about what's going to happen to me tomorrow. Am I going to be able to, be healthy? Will I have enough funds? We worry about that, but we don't worry about where am I headed and what is my eternal harvest going to be. We don't worry about that real future, but we worry about the other future, which is also real, but it's already taken care of. I mean, the one who brings us to this world and takes care of our breathing will also take care of our needs.
Yeah, so it's I get what you say. That's very important. Let's say the second one is, as you said, it's not fake, but it is a limited future, because it is part of the first one. The dunya and akhirah come together. But when we are instead of ghafla, we forget about akhirah and we think that this dunya, that tomorrow exists on its own. Whereas in reality, this dunya is mazra'atul akhirah. It is the seed bed, or how do you say, where we produce the crops for akhirah. So if we take care of akhirah, tomorrow will be included in it. If I rely and trust my Rabb and focus on getting ready for akhirah here and now, tomorrow and the day after tomorrow are all included in it and being taken care of it. So maybe we can say one is limited, as you said, because it's not truly fake. It's there, but it's maybe my perception that's fake. And in the next ayah, we're told, فَوَرَبِّكَ لَنَحْشُرَنَّهُمْ وَالشَّيَاطِينَ ثُمَّ لَنُحْضِرَنَّهُمْ حَوْلَ جَهَنَّمَ جِثِيًّا. And so by your sustainer. So Allah is saying by your Rabb, فَوَرَبِّكَ. This is a pleasure, وَالْقَسَمْ. On the judgment day, we shall most certainly bring them forth together with the Satans which impelled them in life, And then we shall most certainly gather them on their knees around hell. On their knees is like in that humble state around hell. Jithiya is to sit on your knee. And if you remember in ayah 44 and 45, when we were talking about Ibrahim alayhi salam's father worshipping Satan and being close to shayateen, to Satans, we talked about the term shaitan, which is also used in the Quran to describe some evil propensity, human tendency to follow the path of Satan, which leads into hell. So that's why it says here, we will gather them in hell. They will be gathered, them and the shayateen, and the Satans. The Satans is all those tendencies and propensities and inclinations that led those people into hell, or that can lead any human being into hell. And we also at that time looked at many different verses, ayat in the Quran, and we saw that Satan does not compel anyone to follow him. It is our free choice, either deliberately or by default. By default, we choose unconsciously. When we don't consciously choose goodness, we unconsciously follow Satan, shaitan. And the first group, those who deliberately choose to follow Satan, they know what they're doing. The first group, they rebel. They are rebellious against their Rabb. The seconds are fools who harm themselves unknowingly, and they are the majority. And in the next ayah, we're told ثُمَّ لَنَنْزِعَنَّ مِنْ كُلِّ شِيَعَةٍ أَيُّهُمْ أَشَدُّ عَلَى الرَّحْمَنِ عِتِيًّا. And thereupon we shall indeed draw forth from every group of sinners, the ones that had been most determined in their rebellion against the merciful. And here, لَنَنْزِعَنَّ, we will most certainly naza'a, to pull out with force. It implies that they won't be willing to be removed, but they will be. Which means that those who have consciously and deliberately rejected their merciful Rabb, Ar-Rahman, and maybe this way they have led many weaker and less conscious people astray. They are the people who write, the people who go ahead, who think they know this is the way, that they know that there is no akhirah, and they are very vocal about it. And they take lots of weaker, unconscious people just follow in their path. Those people, they will be consigned to the deepest suffering in the hereafter, which means they will be deprived of God's mercy since they deliberately denied his mercy here in this world. And this sounds scary. But don't worry, because there will be no injustice. No one will be put there by mistake. God knows who deserves what. And in the next ayah, we're told, ثُمَّ لَنَحْنُ أَعْلَمُ بِالَّذِينَ هُمْ أَوْلَى بِهَا صِلِّيًّا. For indeed, we know best as to which of them is most deserving of the fires of hell. So in 69, we're told, in every group, the most rebellious, those who consciously rebelled against God's the merciful, they will be brought in the front. They will be separated by force from their groups and be brought in the front. And in 70, we're told we know best as to which of them is most deserving of hell. So there is no mistake. And in this ayah, in ayah 70, we can almost see, it seems to me, like all these leaders in rebelling against God, those who were foremost in rebelling against God's mercy and denying it, they've been removed against their will from their groups where they'd feel more safe. And now they are standing before God, waiting to see who will be thrown into the fire first. This is the image you get from the imagery, from the description in the ayat. And this somehow reminds me of waiting for death while still in this world. Unless we believe in a merciful Rabb, unless we are sure about Akhirah, it is like waiting for one's turn to go into the frightening unknown. It's like we're going into, Imam Badiouzzama Nursi now came to my mind. He gave the metaphor of the train. It's like life is like a train. Everyone is on a journey and you have people around you, and then suddenly someone is thrown out of the window and disappears in the darkness. Can you imagine? Someone is taken into obliteration, his life ends, it's all darkness, and we are scared. When will be my turn? So this state of being, this state of mind of the people who rebel against God, reminded me of how we could be unless we are sure about Akhirah and about how merciful our Rabb is. Then waiting for death, and death can catch us at any corner, any time. It becomes like this in this life here and now, and that's why we have to keep ourselves very busy, not to remember what seems in that perception, what seems like the reality of life. If we don't know who our Rabb is, if we're not certain of Akhirah, there is that fear of death, fear of being cold, thrown into darkness, into the unknown, into what seems like obliteration and annihilation. And in the next ayah we're told, and every one of you will come within sight of it, within sight of hellfire. This is, with your sustainer, a decree that must be fulfilled. وَإِن مِّنكُمْ إِلَّا وَارِدُهَا كَانَ عَلَى رَبِّهِ حَتْمًا مَقْضِيًّا. And so this fire, where these leaders in rebelling against God will be in the front, waiting for who will be thrown into hellfire first. But then we are told, every one of you will come within sight of it, will pass by it, will come close to it. Warada is like pass by it, will come within sight of it. Some commentators said that you will come close to it, to hellfire, relates only to, it's speaking to the sinners only, to those who are going to hellfire only. But those who are going to hellfire, they won't go just pass by it, they will get into it. And particularly they said it's talking about those who refuse to believe in the resurrection, in life after death. And they cite some passages from the Quran. One of them is in Surat Al-Anbiya, which is Surah 21, from ayah 100 to 103, when we are told, لَهُمْ فِيهَا زَفِيرٌ وَهُمْ فِيهَا لَا يَسْمَعُونَ إن الذين سبقت لهم منا الحسنى أولئك عنها مبعدون. Actually it's this أولئك عنها مبعدون and come back. لا يسمعون حسيسها وهم فيما اشتهت أنفسهم خالدون لا يحزنهم الفزع الأكبر وتتلقاهم الملائكة هذا يومكم الذي كنتم توعدون. So we're told first the hell is being described. Mourning will be their lot therein, and nothing else will they hear therein in hellfire. And then the description of hell ends, and then we are told, but behold, as for those for whom the decree of ultimate good, al-husna, has already gone forth from us, these will be kept far away from that hell. أولئك عنها مبعدون. بعيد is far, مبعدون, they will be kept far away. And they will hear no sound of it. And they will abide in all that their souls have ever desired. The supreme awesomeness of the day of resurrection will cause them no grief, since the angels will receive them with the greetings. This is your day of triumph, the day which you were promised. So even the day of judgment, where we are told everyone will be scared, it says they will not grieve because the angels will descend upon them. But because here it's saying they will be kept far away, some commentators says they will not come close. But others said, no, they will pass by it, and then they will be taken far. So the majority of commentators, and it's interesting, because I will go with the majority. I'll tell you why. So the majority of the commentators, they were of the opinions that each human being, whether a sinner or righteous, they are all included in this address, in this ayah, and in the sense that every single person will pass by hellfire or come within sight of it. However, some said the believers who rejoiced in God's mercy in this world and worshipped Him and were grateful to Him alone. I'm explaining what worshipped Him means because I want us to be clear about what it means. Worshipping Him alone means being grateful to Him alone, praising Him alone. So they will be the object of His mercy in the next world as well. And they will be protected from hellfire, like Ibrahim a.s. was protected from the fire. And others said that the people of paradise will pass by hellfire, and this way they will realize what they have escaped. And we in Surat Al-Imran, which is the third surah in the Quran, in ayah 185, we are told, كل نفس ذائقة الموت وإنما توفون أجوركم يوم القيامة فمن زحزح عن النار وأدخل الجنة فقد فاز وما الحياة الدنيا إلا متاع الغرور. Every human being is bound to taste death, but only on the day of resurrection will you be requited in full for whatever you have done. Whereupon he that shall be drawn away from the fire, you see that people will be drawn away from the fire and brought into paradise, will indeed have gained triumph, will have succeeded. For the life of this world is nothing but an enjoyment of self-delusion. So you see that there is something about getting close to fire and then being taken away from it. Even the passage that was cited to mean that believers won't get close to paradise doesn't say that you to hell, doesn't say that. It just said they will be taken far away from hellfire. And in so this ayah is saying every one of you will come within sight of hellfire. This is, with your sustainer, a decree that must be fulfilled. No one can change it. حتما مقضية. It is already fulfilled. The decree is fulfilled. So how can we confirm the message of this ayah here and now? And we talked about this many times, so I'll just remind ourselves. First, that this world and the next are not disconnected. They are actually like the two sides of the same coin. They don't exist separately or independently. The now in this world is constantly flowing into akhirah, and everyone is growing, let's say, his akhirah right now. We are planting the seeds that will grow the crops of akhirah. الدنيا مزرعة الآخرة, it says in the hadith, as the Prophet ﷺ taught us. That's one thing. They are not separate. So I can't wait until akhirah. We'll see, will we be close to hellfire or not? We will see it from far or not? And then I will be able to confirm this ayah. It will be too late. I need to. This ayah is sent to me right now. It means it has a meaning, a message for me now to get me ready to live my life so that it bears fruit of paradise rather than hellfire. And so the second point will be that we always talk about contrast. We learn and grasp and know things through their opposites. And so it's not only that day that we will see hell, and that's how we will appreciate paradise. It's here and now. Either we make mistakes and we go into that hellfire ways of being, or sometimes we don't have to go there. We can see others. We can even imagine, if I follow this path, this is where it goes. And because even through my imagination, I can feel the anxiety and the pain of following the path of Satan, going away from following divine guidance, I can right now say astaghfirullah and come back and say, oh, I am not going down that path. So we learn and feel and through contrast. And I want to share a small quote from Imam Badiuzzama Said Nursi. He's talking about hell and paradise and how both of them, the existence of both of them is totally consistent, is a manifestation of God's mercy and rahmah. But we're not looking at it from that perspective. We just want to read this short quote when he talks about the contrasts in creation. He says, there is a lot of wisdom in the confrontation and interpenetration of good and evil in the world, and pain and pleasure, light and darkness, and heat and cold, and beauty and ugliness, and guidance and misguidance. For indeed, if there were no evil, good would not be known. If there were no pain, pleasure would not be understood. It wouldn't mean anything. We wouldn't have a name for it. Light without darkness would lack all importance. We would not talk about it because there would be nothing to compare it to. So if we lived in light only, 1 degree of light only, we wouldn't have a word for it because we would take it for granted. The degrees of heat are realized through cold. So now we're going through something else. He's making 2 points here, that we know, we learn and know and realize things through their opposites. And the second point is the degrees. He's saying the degrees of heat are realized through cold. Moreover, through ugliness, a single instance of beauty becomes 1,000 instances. And thousands of varying degrees of beauty come into existence. How do we talk about degrees of beauty? Because the more ugliness interferes, the less beauty, the more we can talk about more beautiful, more beautiful, more beautiful. Therefore, after a certain degree, we say there is even more, more, more. So although we are limited and everything around us is limited, we have a sense of the unlimited. We have a sense of eternal, unlimited beauty. How do we get that? We never can witness something and say this is unlimited beauty, but we have a sense of it because of these degrees. It's like the numbers. We count 1, 2, 3, 4. And we know that if we sit there and count until we die, we can still count. So it gives us a sense of what infinity is, although we never actually can physically, we cannot experience infinity. But because the soul knows the infinite, because God has breathed of his own spirit into a human being, because he has taught us all of the names, we grasp this. But how do we grasp it? Through these degrees. So the contrast fulfill two aims, two goals. One is we know light because we're aware of light because we have darkness, and then we know and we become aware of the various degrees of light because of the various degrees of interferences of darkness. And so he says, through ugliness, a single instance of beauty becomes 1,000 instances, and thousands of varying degrees of beauty come into existence. If there were no hell, many of the pleasures of paradise would remain concealed. By analogy with this, in one respect, everything may be known through its opposite, in one respect, of course. And a single truth produces numerous truths and becomes numerous truths. Since these intermingled beings pour from this transient realm, from this transient world, into the eternal world, surely, just as things like goodness, pleasure, light, beauty, and belief are poured, they flow into paradise, so too harmful matters like evil, pain, darkness, ugliness, and disbelief flow into hell, and they make hell. And so the floods of this continuously agitated universe are emptied in those two pools. And you see how the 2 points that are talked about are related. Right now we are growing the light or darkness, evil or good, belief or disbelief, the fruits of paradise or the fruits of hell. And we get to appreciate one because of the existence of the others. But we don't have to spend our life in pain in order to understand pleasure or joy. And so once we get a taste of pain, we can truly appreciate joy and pleasure. And if we are conscious of the source of all blessings, if we know our Rabb, if we know him as the bestower and dispensers of all blessings, then we are grateful to him alone, whether in pain or in pleasure. And then the pain will become a sign to the pleasure. Actually, both pain and pleasure together, their coexistence, is what makes them act and as an ayah, as a sign to manifold blessings and joys. And we will, inshallah, be saved from the hell state, or those states of being that lead to hell. And the next ayah says, ثُمَّ نُنَجِّي الَّذِينَ اتَّقُوا وَنَذَرُ الظَّالِمِينَ فِيهَا جِثِيًّا. Then we shall save from hell those who have been conscious of us, but we shall leave in it the evildoers on their knees. Again, jithiya, on their knees. And on their knees here means utterly humbled, crushed. I mean, can you imagine? Like someone who was never aware of the reality of the ayat, of the reality that everything here meant something and pointed to something beyond. And then you go there in Akhirah, and then you realize that you missed everything, that you lived all your life for nothing, that you missed the most important message, the purpose of your life. You missed the main destination. You will be crushed when you realize that. And when you are there in front of God on the day of judgment. And especially when you realize how arrogantly someone lived, if we live with arrogance, as though arrogance is not necessarily arrogance towards people, but arrogance towards our reality, arrogance in the sense that we imagine ourselves to be self-sufficient, that we forget that we are being sustained, that we never ask about the true purpose of our life because we take it for granted that I know what I need. I need this house, I need that, I need this career. I have it all figured out. How do you know? Like, at least it could be right, but like, how did you figure it out? You don't even know where you came from or where you're going. How did you figure out that that's what you needed? So there is an arrogance in that state of mind, in that self-perception. And if we do not realize that in this world, but realize it when it's too late, it's very crushing. That's why it says on their knees. Subhanallah. And it says, نُنَجِّي الَّذِينَ اتَّقُوا. So who will be saved? The God conscious. Those who will live with taqwa. And this taqwa is not only a state of consciousness, of knowing. No, it's a knowing, a being, and therefore a doing, a living. You live with that consciousness. You live with that knowing. You can't know something for true and you are doing something else. It means you don't know it, or you don't believe it truly. You don't take it seriously. So the muttaqis are those who follow the guidance of their Rabb in the Quran and in the world, like the guidance of the ayat. How do we follow the guidance of our Rabb? Because one, we listen to the Quran, and in the Quran it tells us that all of the creation, everything, all events, all being, whatever is happening, all the activity is an activity of rububiyyah. They are ayat. It means they bear messages from your Rabb. And so when we listen to the guidance of the Quran, we start perceiving everything around us as ayat, as messages from our Rabb. And it means they have meaning, they have purpose. And we start reading the messages and take them seriously and live by them, unlike the disbelievers who dismiss the messages in the ayat. And instead they pursue their own baseless desires, their own, what they think they need, what they think they figured out. And it reminds me of Yusuf alayhi salam and his brothers. When we said, the brothers at the beginning, when they decide to get rid of Yusuf alayhi salam, it's not like they feel it's okay, they have no conscience. No, they do feel bad, but they say, we'll do it, and then later we will be of the good ones, min as-salihin. So it means they do receive guidance, but they don't follow it, they don't take it seriously, because they think they know what they need and they figured it out, and they are going to do it, whatever, because they're sure when they get rid of Yusuf, they will get their father's attention and love. And so even though the conscience says, what you're doing is not right, they do not listen to the ayat. That's not their intention. They don't take the ayat seriously. But Yusuf alayhi salam, when he was being seduced by the wife of the Aziz, immediately says he saw a sign of his Rabb and he makes istighfar and runs away. So everyone receives the signs, not only Yusuf alayhi salam and not only the prophets, but as soon as he sees it, he recognizes it as a sign and acts upon it. He obeys, he follows the guidance. That's the difference. He does bring his own, he doesn't have his own desires. He has not laid his own goals in life, and I have to follow them, whatever is going on. No, the abd is the one who is aware that he doesn't know. God knows, so he doesn't have a plan for his life. He follows God's plan for him. And at the end of the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, his dream is fulfilled, but he never took action to fulfill the dream. The dream was given, the dream was fulfilled. All his life was, in a way, a fulfillment of the dream. But from his perspective, that was not his goal. His goal was always to surrender to God, to follow the guidance. And the next ayah we say, whenever our clear ayat, our clear messages are conveyed to them, those who disbelieve, they say unto those who believe, which one of the two groups is in a better position and is superior as a community, as an assembly? Whenever our clear ayats are conveyed to them, it means وَإِذَا تُتْلَى عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتُنَا بَيِّنَاتٍ, whenever our messages are conveyed to them in clarity, in all their clarity, قَالَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, those who disbelieve say to those who believe, أَيُّ الْفَرِيقَيْنِ خَيْرٌ مَقَامًا وَأَحْسَنُ نَدِيًّا. Here the groups may represent two approaches to life, either based on faith in God and following his guidance and morality, or following their own rules and their own whims or whatever. The second group can look like a very varied group, but they have one thing in common: they don't follow divine guidance. Everyone thinks they know what they're doing. And these two groups, they can be at the level of different inclinations within the same person, or two types of human beings, or two kinds of societies or communities. But it starts with the human being making choices, either surrendering to the reality or ignoring it and making up their own reality. And so this is a rhetorical question when they say which of the two groups is in a better position. It's actually the unbelievers clearly believe that their way is better. And when they are asking, in Arabic, it's clear that it's a rhetorical question. It means they are saying, isn't our way better? Isn't clearly our way better? And we often hear such arguments about freedom, for instance. Now, you can't have freedom when you are a believer, when you worship God, as though when you worship your own self and your own whims, as though it seems like you are free, but you are not free. You're worshiping so many things that don't lead you anywhere anyways. Because people, when you are in that state of being, they see the no restraints as is defined as freedom. And of course, it's playing with words and deluding oneself. I mean, if you harm yourself, if you harm others, if you assume that we are thinking animals and live like an animal, that's not freedom. But this kind of argument is so common that more and more people are losing their sense of morality. There is a deterioration of even like the fitra, and it's becoming more and more global. It's like a global culture. And following divine guidance is more and more looked at as if something restricting. And of course, it is restricting to the ignorant. For the believer, it is liberating, as we have talked about it in earlier classes. For instance, material success and materialistic power can be perceived as the mark of happiness and achievement and success. And often they're also falsely linked to the rejection of the divine. It's because we rejected religion that we are advancing. First, that's a false argument. Second, so what if you get material success and you have no peace of mind? So Quranic moral standards, the Quranic way of life, that's not an obstacle to human development. However, human development cannot be materialistic only. It leads to personal dissatisfaction, to greed, to exploitation of nature, of animals, of other human beings, to injustices, to world wars, to destruction of nature, of human societies, of family bonds, of the fitra itself. So, don't want to get there, but you can reflect about it and realize that true human development will have the physical and the non-physical, the spiritual and the material will be together. And when they are together, they will bring peace and happiness to the people here in this world and in the next. And when they are not together, they will bring maybe power, maybe some material benefits, but even in this world, they won't truly satisfy a human being. And in this world, we see how much destructions and they bring with them. The side effects are, it's like medicine. It heals one thing, it destroys so many more things. And that's because they are not based, those two groups, the two al-fariqain, there are two paths. Either it's based on the reality, or it ignores the reality. For instance, most of the mainstream culture ignores the fact that we will die. So how do we will deal with death? Ignore it, forget it, don't think about it. But it's there, deep down everyone knows, and you get depressed. And there is a sense of emptiness and no purpose, and nothing can truly be significant if at the end of our life it will end up with what we think when we are in that state of mind. Death becomes the end of everything, the annihilation, the darkness. There's nothing afterwards. And we know that we will all die. كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ. Every human being is bound to taste death. So a whole civilization based on avoiding death and ignoring it cannot lead to something superior. But they are so sure. They say, oh, which of the two groups is in a better position and is superior? But these are disbelievers talking. It means ours is much better. And that's why they are following that path. And any reasonable, any enduring and wise worldview or perception of the world needs to take the reality, this reality of death, this reality of transience and transience of everything into consideration. Otherwise, it is nothing but self-delusion. What's power, what's property, what's material development if they are temporary, if they all end with death? And in the next ayah we're told, and yet how many a generation we have destroyed before their time, people who surpassed them in material power and resources and in outward show. Like it says in many other verses in the Quran, in other passages, like, go and see the people before you, they were more powerful than you. Of course, together with this self-deluding civilization comes the myth that we are always getting better, always getting better. There is this development, we are always, who said we are always getting better? Can anyone build the pyramids? We can't, we don't have the technology of the knowledge or the know-how to do it. So it's not true that we are all only getting better and stronger. That's a myth to tell us that you're fine, you're getting better and better, and one day you will reach that self-satisfaction. But such self-satisfaction can't be reached outside. It has to be reached first inside, through that connection with God, that connection with who we truly are, the connection through the meaning of life, the purpose of life. And so here we're told, وَكَمْ أَهْلَكْنَا قَبْلَهُمْ مِنْ قَرْنٍ وَكَمْ أَهْلَكْنَا قَبْلَهُمْ مِنْ قَرْنٍ هُمْ أَحْسَنُ أَثَاثًا وَرِئْيًا. Like, how many generations, how many civilizations we have destroyed before them? They came and they passed. Not only human beings pass, whole civilizations pass. And those civilizations, those people, they surpassed them in material power, in resources, and in outer show. So, like, who are you kidding? Who are you deceiving except yourself? And next we are told, say, whoever is lost in misguidance, whoever lost in error, may the most merciful extend the span of his life and let them say whatever they say until the time when they behold that which they were forewarned, whether it be suffering in this world or at the coming of the last hour. For then they will understand which of the two groups was worse in station and weaker in resources. قل من كان في الضلالة فليمدد له الرحمن مدا حتى إذا رأوا ما يوعدون إما العذاب وإما الساعة فسيعلمون من هو الشر مكان وأضعف جندا. It means grant him, whoever is lost in misguidance, may the most merciful will extend the span of his life. He will grant him a respite so that he might have a chance to realize the error of his ways. So Allah, can you see the mercy? Even if someone is deliberately denying, Allah gives them this opportunity to see the error of their ways. So they give up so that they can go back and repent until the time when they behold that which they were forewarned, either the suffering in this world or the coming of the last hour. They realize people get, for instance, sick suddenly and they have a heart attack, there's something unexpected, so that even if they don't go through suffering in this world, at least they realize the last hour, they realize the reality of death. For then, only then, they will understand which of the true group was. They said we were better. They were saying to the believers, can't you see that we are better in station? And here he said, they will realize when they see the reality of their mortality, the reality of transience, the reality of everything being impermanent, they will see which of the group was worse in station and weaker in resources, meaning that their path, their group, their civilization, their culture, their worldview, their perception of the world is the one that is the worse and the weaker, because it is based on self-deception, on delusion. So from the perspective of reality, it would be clear who is worse in station and weaker in resources. A very, very simple example that came to my mind is something very simple, something actually that I lived with some friends when I first put the hijab many, many years ago. So wearing the hijab may feel like a burden to some people. I remember like friends saying, but alhamdulillah, it felt like a burden to them, but they still wear it, which is good in the beginning. They are still surrendering. They are making that step forward. However, when with that perception, it feels like a sacrifice because other lifestyles seem more attractive. So that's okay to start with, but if we remain all our lives, live that way, it becomes like a burden. And that's why it's not only for the hijab, but for lots of people, like ibadah is like worship, it feels like a burden when it's actually a privilege. It's a ni'mah, it's a rahmah. But when our iman in God increases, when we become more aware of the meaning of life, our purpose in life, then we realize that the Quranic lifestyle, the lifestyle that the Quran is offering to us, is the most adequate for our fitrah. And we start to rejoice in it. And being grateful for the hijab, for instance, it's a blessing. The more you may not be able to explain it to others, but you feel the many fold blessings within it. And it becomes a ni'mah, not a sacrifice, a rahmah, not a sacrifice, something to be so grateful for. Something to be so grateful for. And then that it becomes ibadah. Ibadah to the most wise, our Rabb, who knows our most hidden needs and guides us in life accordingly. And wearing it gives us peace of mind. It helps us mature. It becomes our way of making ibadah, and it bears, of course, the fruits of paradise. In this world, the seeds of the fruit of paradise, the soul takes pleasure in it, and in akhirah, inshallah, it will be paradise. So the more committed we are to live with taqwa, with that consciousness of God, of that consciousness of our Rabb, of being ibad Allah, being abd, the clearer it becomes to us in this world, here and now, that living according to divine guidance is the better station. It is the best station, inshallah. It's the best that could happen to us. It just so makes you feel safe, makes you remember again and again your Rabb, that you are being taken care of. It makes you feel at home here before akhirah. And so in the next ayah we're told, and God endows those who avail themselves of his guidance with an even deeper consciousness of the right way. Like he increases. You follow the guidance, I will increase my guidance. You follow my guidance, I will increase your consciousness of the right way. And good deeds, the fruit whereof endures forever, are in your sustainer sight of far greater merit than any worldly goods, and yield far better returns. Subhanallah, how beautiful. وَيَزِيدُ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ اهْتَدَوْا هُدًى وَالْبَاقِيَاتُ الصَّالِحَاتُ خَيْرٌ عِنْدَ رَبِّكَ ثَوَابًا وَخَيْرٌ مَرَدًّا. So the more we follow his guidance, the more he will add guidance upon guidance. يزيد الله الذين اهتدوا هدى. يزيد. He will increase their guidance, increase that consciousness, that knowing, that certainty that we are in the right way, that this is the best way to be, to live, to spend this life. And we become more and more aware of the purpose in our life and keep it here and now. And when the purpose of our life, being abd, surrendering to our Rabb here and now, we keep that awareness all the time, everything else in our life becomes easy, because everything else will become a subset of this, the main guidance, the main purpose in life. And following guidance will become not only easy, but a mercy. We will be eased into the path of easiness, the path of mercy. Because we said at the beginning that this surah is about mercy, but we can only get mercy from the dispenser of mercy. We can only get rahmah from the Rahman, from the bestower of rahmah, from the only source of rahmah. If we go and look for it in other things, that's the worse, the weaker station, because we won't find what we're looking for there. We will be disillusioned. But when we look for the rahmah from the Rahman, we will get more and more and more, inshallah. And the good deeds, the good deeds, they bear eternal fruits, and they have far better returns than any other worldly goods, because that's what the disbeliever said to the believer. Look at ours, like, oh. But there is no comparison, because one is doomed in this life and nothing else. The other one, في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة. Goodness in this life, and therefore goodness in the next, forever. Because they are related. Good deeds performed in the name of God, performed Bismillah, with the consciousness, with the Iman, and the consciousness of the connection to my Rabb. They look to those deeds, will look to the eternal names of God, and so they bear eternal fruits of paradise in Akhirah. They will be seeds, and those seeds, they will be beautiful in this world, but they will be even more beautiful in the next, inshallah. So you can see how the whole surah is teaching us how to find the rahmah within Tawheed, live with it, and avoid all the other paths that take us away from the rahmah. And this rahmah is in this world and in the next, forever. Call it paradise, call it eternal beauty, but it's very beautiful. I will, inshallah, stop here. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه اللهم أنت ربي لا إله إلا أنت خلقتني وأنا عبدك وأنا على عهدك ووعدك ما استطعت أعوذ بك من شر ما صنعت أبوء لك بنعمتك علي وأبوء بذنبي فاغفر لي فإنه لا يغفر الذنوب إلا أنت آمين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Thank you.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you, Sister Yamina. Are there any comments or questions?
Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah khair, Yamina. It's interesting, like as you're making dua, Allahumma atina fi dunya hasana fil akhirat hasana, that they're always paired, like they come together. Like if it's hasana in the dunya, then it comes with hasana in the akhirah. Like they're always paired up. And then when Allah mentions, and some people have only good in the dunya, but there's nothing in the akhirah. So then it needs to be stated that they're not paired. But usually if it's hasanat, then inshallah it's always paired. And the other interesting thing that you were speaking about, like the hijab, people who actually feel it's a burden, we're seeing more and more of the sisters take off their hijab because they're feeling it's a burden. And first they say, first because it's not something of pleasure, it's a burden, then they're first taking it off because they don't want to be persecuted. That very soon after they take it off, they're trying to look more like other people. First they have long sleeves, then the sleeves become shorter, and then things keep changing. So again, on the other hand, people who feel comfortable, with the hijab, and they find peace in it, as they grow, they try to make it more covering, more like they find peace in being more modest. So it's interesting that you mentioned that, because once they feel it as a burden, then once it's off, it's not just because it's a burden, it's because I'm trying to assimilate with something else, while with whether it's the hijab or whether it's prayer or whether it is being with the jama'ah, it's like you're trying to be on on a path that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has shown you that it will lead to your peace and pleasure. While the other path, because it looks from the worldly side, it looks like it's more successful. It looks like people on this path, are seemingly doing better. So we get fooled to want to be on that path because it's the path that looks better. So I guess this challenge is in seeing beyond the obvious, seeing beyond the worldly success or the seemingly worldly success. And that is our challenge. Jazakallah khair.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Isra, you were going to say something?
No, I just wanted to add to Sister Alia's comment that in really the process of waking up comes through thinking about the future. I mean, the real future, the where am I going? And if there is separation, if there is death, what's the point of getting approval of this person and looking good in this way or that way? And that's the kind of turning point. One of the things I'm taking from today's class, that's the breakthrough. Where am I going? And because people may applaud us, or we may think we are getting somewhere, but then it's until the grave. When you die, and then the show goes on. People say, "Oh, she passed away," and we,
And the grave can be tomorrow, can be tonight.
Yeah.
It's not like we don't even have a warranty for that. And even if it lasts 100 years, when it ends, it ends. It's kullu atin qareeb. It's like multiply everything, you fill in the parentheses with all successes and achievements and everything, multiplied by 0. Because the end we think is 0. If we think death is the end of everything, if we not aware of the life after death, it means 0. And so everything becomes 0 at the end. So why should we even bother? What's the meaning in all that? Of course, deep down, there is a side of us that says, no, lots of things are so meaningful. But unless we listen to the ayah, to the messages, and pursue the guidance, we're not going to ask the right questions, and we limit ourselves with our self-delude. How would you say? Self-delusive?
Self-delusions. Yeah.
Perception of the world.
Yamina, we had yesterday, Ziba was with us as well, and Rima. Our community has buried a 26-year-old girl. The 26-year-old girl, mashallah, was in second year medical school. She was one of the brightest. She got a scholarship for her undergraduate, and she got a scholarship for her graduate. And then in her last 2 years, which is like, when she started graduate studies in medical school, she started questioning, like, is this religion haqq? Is this the religion that, is this the path? And then it seems at one point she came to that conclusion. And when she came to that conclusion, she changed a lot of her practices. She started realizing that people in medical school, to deal with stress, either drink or take medication or do other things. And then she found that her way to deal with stress was to pray on time. So she would pray on time, regardless on what was going on. So even if she is like, if she's, if it's at a class, she would like, leave to pray. If it's like, a test, she would pray, like she would just pray on time. And then she started adding tahajjud. And her mother would tell her on test days, like, Sarah, why don't you like, just sleep and wait for Fajr? And, she says, but Mom, I need my energy. I need like the boost. And I get the boost from the tahajjud. And then someone in her professor in her classroom was picking on her because she would come His class was like, just right after Dhuhr, so she would come always 5 or 10 minutes late. And a lot of students would come late, but they would not pick on him. He would not pick on them. And she ended up like writing to the Dean of Diversity saying, I need this. I cannot do without praying on time. I just simply cannot do this. If I don't pray on time, it will stress me out. And this is my only stress reliever. So then anyway, she was able, they apologized to her. It's interesting that this girl had such, she was heading that way. And then before she died, her parents traveled. She called her aunt the day she died to stay the weekend with her. Her aunt came in and she had her Quran on. She had a mark on the Surah where she stopped. She was asleep. The aunt, opened the door, kissed her and said, we'll talk in the morning. And in the middle of her sleep, she, got heart arrest and she passed away. When we went to the janazah, her cousin was at her head saying, Sara, Rabbikullah ya Sara, Sara, Dinik al-Islam, Sara, Nabiyik Muhammad, Sara, Kitabik al-Quran. And she was repeating it. And it became very clear why we are asked to go to janazah. Because at the end, these are the only things that matter. Rabbikullah, Dinik al-Islam, Nabiyik Muhammad, Kitabik al-Quran. And her mother, instead of being devastated and crying, she was saying, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, my daughter prayed all her prayers on time. Alhamdulillah, my daughter made tahajjud. Alhamdulillah, my daughter had Quran in her heart. And the mother kept saying that again and again. So even for the family, like the mother said, if my daughter wasn't praying, my heart would have eaten me up. If my daughter was not doing this, my heart would have eaten me up. But I know my daughter did all of this. Ya Allah, and you are Akram al-Akram. So at the end of the time, this is the only things that matter. And because our culture, all the cultures don't focus on death, it becomes very important for us to see people like this family in this situation, speaking about that daughter that way. And I thought she came for us as a teacher, like she really taught us through her death. And I don't know who else did she teach, but she taught us a lot.
That's why Inna lillahi, we belong to God, and to Him we are returning. We are in a state of returning. And we forget, we think one day we will return. No, we are raji'un. Yeah.
Very true. Alhamdulillah.
May Allah have mercy on her and all of us, inshallah.
May
we learn from her. She was a teacher. Yeah, she had her focus clear. She had things clear, like it was clear for her.
Yeah, may Allah have mercy
on all of us. And may we follow His guidance, and His says, as we follow His guidance, inshallah, He will increase His guidance, and it will become easier and easier. Like
she started praying on time, then she started doing tahajjud, then she started memorizing Quran. Like every step led her to a different step, and that's while doing second year medical school, which is one of the toughest year in medical school, by the way. And at the end, she was the winner. Inshallah, she is the winner.
Yeah, because when this is important, I think what Isra was saying also, because we were talking about it last week, that when we focus on our main purpose, which is ibadah, which is ubudiyah, which is getting ready here and now, I am abd of my Rabb, and I surrender and follow His guidance, then everything else will be taken care of anyway. Like you don't stop breathing or you don't stop eating. So when you follow your ubudiyah, then you are a student, you will do your assignments, you will go to school and come back. But usually what we are taught is, I am a student now, I will take care of my school, and everything else will become secondary. And one day, even in terms of dunya, even in terms of worldly goals, it's like I will become a doctor, and then I will practice so many years. I'll get this position. I'll get this much money. I'll buy the house. I'll do this. I'll do that. And then I will be happy. And then I will do this and that. And by the time, even let's say if I don't die meanwhile, I will be too old. I'll retire. And then, so even in terms of the worldly, what we, in the state of ghafla, all the worldly, Muslim and non-Muslim, everyone, we think in that way. We follow all kinds of secondary, so-called secondary goals, so that one day they will lead us to the main goal. What is that main goal anyway? If you spend all your life not being happy, not being satisfied, being depressed, being miserable, because one day when you have the money, when you have the degree, when you have this and that, you will be okay. It's like running after a mirage, like it says in the Quran, after Sarab. But when in the Quran, it's here, now you are abd, full stop. You surrender, you follow the guidance. When I follow the guidance, I am a student, you go to school, you come back, you get hungry, you eat. But then everything becomes Bismillah, everything becomes a kind of worship, everything becomes a means to know God, to get closer to Him. Everything bears fruits of paradise. So it's a win-win situation. So everything else, I'll do that later, is just deceiving ourselves. We are abd, that's it, full stop. We are not something else. Abd doctor, abd teacher, abd will do something anyways.
So, Yamina, her mother was saying that her mother is also a doctor. So her mother said, I was like doing questions with her to prepare her for her, like she was preparing for her test, and I was sitting with her. And then like the Maghrib adhan was called, and there were like 3 more questions in the section. And she like, just wanted to get up. And I said, Sarah, let us just finish those 3 questions. And she looked at, said, Mom, if I sit down and do these 3 questions, there'll be no barakah whatsoever. Even if they come on the test, I probably do them wrong. But if I pray now, I'll come back and there will be barakah. And if they come, I'll do them right.
Mm-hmm. But like, let's say like she found her path there, but we know that in the guidance that we learn, there is flexibility there so that we don't mix up the 2 things. It's her, that's how she felt, and it's binding for her because that's how she felt, and she was authentic and true to how she felt. You see what I mean? If you finish the 3 questions and then go to pray, it doesn't mean that.
Yeah, but for her,
what is important is her integrity, that she stayed true to how she felt.
Yeah, and she kept it all through, kept what she promised herself to do till the end. Subhanallah. Her aunt says, I entered her house, and the house she entered at night, she was sleeping. And said the house was beautiful. She had candles up in the living room. Her parents were overseas, and she called her aunt, which was amazing, subhanallah. And she went into her room, she kissed her, like Sarah looked up and, spoke to her, but she said, oh, you're sleeping, wake you up in the morning. And she had her phone with the Quran, like reciting off the phone. And she said she looked so peaceful, subhanallah. It's just amazing. Husn al-Khatima. I just thought also there's a beautiful benefit for Husn al-Khatima. People who are on this path always, mashallah, have Husn al-Khatima. May Allah give us all Husn al-Khatima.
Inshallah.
So let's end on this note, and maybe live with this wisdom and awareness, inshallah, and die with this wisdom and awareness, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Jazakumullah khair, Sister Yamina and everyone. Assalamu alaikum.